If you've been a part of Vine for any time in 2024 this year, then you know we've been in a series that we've been looking at the teaching of Christ. A lot of times it's the words of Christ, sometimes it's the actions of Christ. We've been taking a look at that whole thing. So we've been in the entire year. We did an entire year just on Jesus, his word. So we've been in the Gospels for an entire, it's been one series for all of 2024, just looking at Jesus' teaching, Jesus' interactions, the encounters that he has, all that kind of stuff. And today we arrive back, and if you've been coming for a while, you've noticed that I've done this. I keep circling back to the Sermon on the Mount. So within all the teaching of Jesus in the Gospel, the Sermon on the Mount tends to be his paramount, most instructive, biggest deal in the entire Gospels. And today we find ourselves back in the Sermon on the Mount, all right? Do you know what the golden rule is? Do you know what the golden rule is? Don't yell it out. Do not yell it out, okay? If you think you know what it is, because this, in the greatest sermon ever given, by the greatest speaker, by the greatest teacher ever to exist, is the Sermon on the Mount. And in that sermon, there is the golden rule. I don't know if you know that. The golden rule is in there. If you were like, I thought the golden rule, that was something they taught in elementary school. No, the golden rule is in the Sermon on the Mount, okay? If I called you up here right now, if I pointed at you and said, stand up and say the golden rule, could you do it? Okay, there's two people. Great, okay, good. So this is a funny story. This is a true story. I'm gonna tell you a true story. I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but hopefully he never sees this. It's fine, right? So I'm playing golf at a charity tournament recently, which is the only type of golf that I play anymore. Don't invite me. It's not good. I don't even like it that much. I just go for these charity events, whatever, it's fine. I'm there, I'm playing golf, and the cart's behind us, because in a charity event, you show up and everybody's lined up, right? And you're all just milling. It's a way for the people to network. You know what I'm saying? So we're all networking. Hey, what do you do? Okay. Here's my card, all right? So we're networking, we're having these moments, we're talking, and the group behind us, I know the guy behind us. I haven't seen him in a long time. He used to be an attender here years and years and years ago. It's not important who he is. It's not important what he does, but he's a local principal. So here's the thing, we're talking, and I said, oh man, it's so good to see you. And he's like, yeah, it's good to see you, and we're talking. And there's always the awkwardness if you meet with me and you used to be like an attender here at the church and I haven't seen you in a while, because either one of two reasons. You've moved on to another church, which is fine. I mean, step down for you, but it's fine. Or you're backsliding, right? Satan's got you, okay? That's the deal. Those are the two options that you have, and it's not good for that conversation. And so we're standing there and he goes, just want... This is dead serious. Exactly what he said. I'm going to quote him. This is exactly what he said, okay? He goes, hey, man. I said, how's your daughter and your kids? Because he has a daughter about my son's age. They're seniors in high school. And he goes, hey, I just want you to know, I know you haven't seen us in a while, but we're still following the golden rule. And I said, that's amazing. And he goes, still following the golden rule. He goes, safe sex and no hard drugs. And this is the face, and I'm playing with the mortgage broker of the church, and just a friend of ours and a realtor, and she sees my eye, she's like, what? And I go, excuse me, say what? He said, no hard drugs and safe sex. And I was like, listen, I don't know how to tell you this. That is not the golden rule. It's not even close to the golden rule, okay? That is so distant from the golden rule that I feel bad that you ever attended our church, because it feels like you didn't learn anything at this place, right? So if I had to call on you and ask you what the golden rule was, would you know? I see some expression. There are some faces in this room that's like, oh crap, please do not call on me. Check it out, here it is, you ready? This is Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Okay, I'm gonna give you three different versions of the golden rule. Okay, three different versions. NIV first, here you go. In everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, Jesus says. Let me give you a couple more translations. This is gonna become important later. Check it out. These are just other translators working to translate the same exact passage from the Greek. Here you go. Whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, okay? And then the Worldwide English Version or English Bible says this, whatever you desire for men to do to you, you shall also do to them. That's going to become important later just because, believe it or not, this word, especially here, desire, is the actual best translation from that Greek. So whatever you desire men to do to you, you do it to them. This is the golden rule, okay? Now, today, this is going to be one stream of consciousness, right? There's no like cool like illustrations that start with like a cheesy preacher joke and then have a point, okay? This is just one stream of consciousness, okay? So I need you to lock in. And we're gonna dig a little deeper than I think you've probably digged before on this one instructive from Jesus in the New Testament that has become this big deal to us, this golden rule, this thing that's taken hold culture. It's not like Jesus said, hey, and by the way, golden rule, okay? It's become that to us, and so I'd like to lock in for just a moment and ask some deeper questions that get to the heart of the matter. Are you ready? Going deeper, number one. Here you go, check it out. Is the golden rule more than be nice to each other? I mean, listen, I hear a lot of people talk about the golden rule, and when they say the golden rule, it's basically, let's all be nice. Let's all just be nice. Can't we just be nice? Everybody be nice. When you hear like it explained to a child in a Sunday school class or in at school or whatever, it's always, can you just be nice, right? You be nice, and then they'll be nice back, and everybody be nice, okay? Is that the golden rule? And is there more to it than that? I would argue yes. And let me just break this down really quickly historically. There are basically historically been three major rules, and people have actually labeled these. People still talk about them. I'm not making this up. This isn't my work, but check this out. There's the iron rule, there's the silver rule, and there's the golden rule. Iron rule, silver rule, golden rule. The iron rule is, guess what? Might makes right, right? Might makes right. You got the power, you've got the strength, you get to make the rules, okay? Right? The silver rule is what you do not wish done to you, don't do that to other people. And you notice how that's slightly different. That's in the negative, and Jesus' rule is in the positive. So the negative is, hey, if you don't like it, don't do it, right? Which is typically the way we talk about it. Be nice, right? You wouldn't like that done to you, right? The golden rule is, do to others as you would have them done to you, right? As you desire it to be done to you, okay? Slightly different. You can see this breakdown really, really, really well in Luke chapter 10 when Jesus tells the story of the Samaritan. Remember this? He's traveling on the road. He is, mugged on the road for all intents and purposes for this story of the Cliff Notes. And he's laid there. He's injured. He's lost all his, traveling money. And there's these groups that come through. So the first group is these people that have attacked him. That's the iron rule. Might makes right. If you have the power, take it. Do whatever you want, right? You get to make the rules, right? The silver rule is, hey, you have these religious people come through. They look at this situation and they go, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching it. They don't do anything wrong, right? They don't do anything, more. They don't kick him as they go through. They don't hurt him. They just say, not touching it, right? That's the silver rule. Just don't do it. Don't do anything to him. And then there's the golden rule, which is the Samaritan comes through, and that's a whole wild story about the Samaritans, but we're going to leave that for another day. The Samaritan comes through, sees this man who's been injured, and puts him up, pays for him, tells the innkeeper, hey, if this isn't enough, when I come back, I'll pay whatever his debt is. This is the golden rule. Are you with me? All right, so this is my translation of the golden rule, okay? And I know that's presumptuous, and I don't care. Here we go. Do to others what you desire they do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Okay? So I've taken two translation teams. I've kind of combined those. It's now the Mike Delong translation, right? The MD, yes, he's a doctor. The MD translation, what are you laughing at? Okay, the MD translation, okay? This is it. All right, I want you to see that. We're going to go back to it a number of times. You notice the whole desire thing in there, right? I added that because it's going to become integral to this sermon later. Follow it. But check this out. 90% of your understanding about this golden rule, we all agree on. And we're not going to discuss that today because that's just, who wants to do that, right? Who needs that sermon? We all got that one, okay? 90%, which is basically like, hey, Do to others what you'd have them do. So like you want to be clothed, you want to be housed, you want to be fed, you want to care. We're excellent at taking care of ourselves, right? None of you are going to go home today and forget to eat lunch. In fact, some of you right now are planning lunch in your own mind, right? You're like, can he hurry up so we can get to lunch? I just got to get out of here. None of you are going to struggle with that. You're going to feed yourself. You will find food. You will forage in the fridge with the light, and you're looking at all the stuff that you've looked at yesterday, and it hasn't changed, right? And you'll find something to microwave or heat up or eat. That's what you'll do. Right? And so for 90% of our understanding on the golden rule, it's like, take care of others the way you take care of yourself, right? We're all in agreement. Are you with me? Everybody's there. Now we're leaving that behind. Let's go a little bit deeper. Here we go. Pull up this next one. Does Jesus expect us to keep the golden rule? Ask yourself this, how are you doing? Probably not. How are you doing with keeping the golden rule? And I know this is typically that moment where for many, many Christians, and I mean this I want you to challenge you a little bit today. I want you to think this through, right? For many, many Christians, we never even ask this question, right? We just go, well, yeah, Jesus said it, so we're supposed to do it, right? But none of us have, or at least very well. Or maybe there's some people in the room that are like, I'm pretty good. But for the most part, we have a sense of awareness that if you challenged us long enough about our own behaviors and the way we treat other people, we would find gaping holes in this rule, right? We'd find gaping holes. Somebody's going to be put in our path today that we probably won't fulfill this with. Are you with me? Let's not amen that one. So let's think this through. If Jesus says it, are we expected to do, is that the reason he says it? Like, hey, shape it up. We want you to do to others as they would have done to you. Be nice. Is the expectation, right, that it's attainable, that we're to do it? And then, if it is, and we know we're underperforming, what should we do? Just try harder? Like, just try harder. Like, if you guys could just try harder, right? And what does that mean? Exhaustively, what does that mean? Right? Because when you read the Gospels and Jesus and all his encounters, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be heavy. How am I even going to get to work, right? It's going to be expensive just going through all the intersections in this town, right? With people asking and longing and need and stuff going on. What am I to do with all of that? And then who's judging whether I've done enough? Do I get to decide? Is it me? I get to decide? Yes, I fulfilled the rule today. There's like a lot of holes here. Are you with me? Which draws us to this point. Is it possible that Jesus is saying this not because it's necessarily attainable? And I know this is going to be a shocker. It's attainable, but because you're responsible. You see, there's a difference between he says this for you to attain to it, meaning you to achieve it, and for you to be aware of what you're responsible for. Those are two different things that most of the time I run into Christians who've never thought this through, who've never done this level of self-examination. Let's go down the road that this is a responsibility statement, meaning that Jesus is saying, hey, when it comes to the issues of morality, you're responsible for this. Let's take out whether we've done it or not, whether we're doing it or not, whether we've done it enough or not. You're responsible for it. Are you with me? Look at it one more time. Do to others what you desire they do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. You see, the golden rule, just as a reminder, comes in the middle, or actually towards the end of the Sermon on the Mount. And the Sermon on the Mount deals almost exhaustively with morality, with personal responsibility to God's ways, God's nature, God's heart, the law, which is descriptive of God's nature, God's law, and God's heart. It's in the moral do's and don'ts that he lists. This is Jesus' exhaustive teaching on the moral do's and don'ts. This is him saying, this is what it's like. Look at it really quick. I'm gonna give you a couple examples just to go quick. You ready? Do not think that I have come to abolish the law, Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, the law of the prophets. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter or not even the least stroke of the pen, remember the King James, not a jot or a tittle, right? Which are terms that refer to the language there and how they phrase the language. Not a jot or a tittle by any means will disappear from the law. Everything is to be accomplished, right? So Jesus says, look, the law is in place. It's in place, and you're responsible for it, right? You're responsible for morality, for all the moral code. Look at this next statement. Look at this. I tell you that unless your righteousness, which is a statement about your personal morality and your good standing with God, surpasses that of the Pharisees and teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Not only are you responsible, but there is a burden to that responsibility, a judgment that comes with that responsibility. And it's like, well, oh, shoot, here we go. And if that wasn't enough, in the middle of that sermon, also Jesus says this, be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Who's doing well now? Not one letter, not one jot nor tittle will be taken from the law. You'll be responsible for this. Perfection is the standard. So now we go back one more time to that phrase and we go, oh, maybe he's not saying this because it's what I can attain, but what I'm responsible for. This is the way to evaluate my personal morality. Look at it closely. Let's dig just a little bit deeper. You ready? What's the purpose behind the golden rule? Remember, if it's not necessarily attainable, none of us have done it. None of us have done it exhaustively, but it is what we're responsible for. What's the purpose then behind the golden rule? Look closely one more time at my version of the golden rule and look at this last statement. Do to others what you desire they do to you. And then listen to this. This is big. For this sums up the law and the prophets. You see that? Meaning that, hey, I'm saying this because it sums up all the moral discussion we've had up until this point in the sermon. Remember, this is at the end of the sermon. Look at this really quickly. There are 613 Old Testament laws, the mitzvot, 613 that's contained in the law and the prophets. 613 laws. Could you imagine if that'd be great. We should do that 1 year. I'll just teach every law 1 year. That'd be amazing. 613 of these bad boys. The mitzvah is obligations or commands. 613 commands. What Jesus is doing here was not uncommon to rabbis, even at his time and before. There's this great story of the Rabbi Hillel, who was a contemporary, so to speak, or just earlier. Jesus just came after Hillel. And this Gentile comes to this rabbi, this Jewish rabbi, and says, while you're standing on one leg, I don't know why that's important, but he says, while you're standing on one leg, if you can explain the entire law, I'll convert. That's what he says. And Hillel says this in response. He says, what is hateful to yourself, do not do to another. He gives the silver rule. What is hateful to yourself, do not do to another. And I say that to you to say, rabbis that Jesus comes in that same stream of did this all the time. They took the entire Old Testament law and prophets that was a description of personal morality and people's morality and public morality and boiled it down to a bumper sticker, to a simple phrase. Hillel's is, if it's hateful to you, don't do it to somebody else. Jesus shifts that just a little bit when he says, do. He makes it positive. He means it's not, hey, you can't go through life not doing. You're going to have to do something. You're going to be held responsible not just for what you don't do, but what you do. Are you with me? Which is a huge responsibility. This is not the only place. There are a number of places that Jesus does this. This is not the only place where he summarizes the law and the prophets. Check this out. I want to give you one more. This is Matthew chapter 22. An expert teacher in the law tested Jesus. Teacher, which is the greatest command in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest command. And then listen to this. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Each of these are quotes from sections of the Old Testament law. One from Deuteronomy in chapter 6, the Shema, which is what Jews said every day as part of their prayer life. And the second comes out of Leviticus, this little phrase in the middle of Leviticus that says, love your neighbor as yourself. And look at this, and listen to what he says here. All the law and the prophets hangs on these two commands. So I want you to see this. He's saying the entire 613, all of the law, all of the Bible is summed up with this simple idea. This is what Jesus says. Love God, and love each other. How you respond to God and how you live amongst yourselves and treat each other. Do you see this? Love God, love each other. Now with that in mind, let's go just a little deeper. You ready? What if my desires are off? Uh-oh. See, I had this week. It was crazy. The whole reason that I'm talking to you about it this way is because I ended up in this conversation where really that's what was being said. When we finally boiled it down, a long conversation, what was being said was, I don't know how to fulfill this golden rule because it requires me to be led by my desires. Do to others what you want them to do to you. But what if you want some weird stuff? And if you're laughing, I think it's a little more complicated than you think if you really think about it. Look at these two, put them back together. When Jesus surmises this, he says, do to others what you desire them to do for you. This sums up the law and prophets. And then love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and the prophets hangs on these two commands. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Put those together. But ask yourself this tough, deeper question. What if my desires are messed up, misplaced, misled? Like, what if that's the case? I was sitting there having this discussion with a friend as we were talking through this, and he was willingly admitting, my desires are messed up. My desires are messed up. Messed up. He was being very specific. I don't want to be too gross, but he was basically saying, look, I'm just being honest. I desire no sexual limits. That's my desire. So I figure everybody else wants that desire. If I lived this out, it wouldn't be good. And I was like, okay, that's weird, right? Or what if they're, not just messed up, what if they're misplaced? What if they're misplaced? What if you want to do good, but it's for the wrong reason? What if that's your desire? I want to do good, but it's to be seen by other people. It's to be applauded by somebody else. What if that's the desire? What if it's misled? Man, there's some parents in this room, and I love you. I think I've been there myself, right? You keep acting out of what you call love to a child, and all it does is enable them to be worse. You say, I desire it, but that desire hasn't been searched enough, hasn't been dealt with enough, and it's wreaking havoc in relationships and in life. The reason this is so important is because, like the prophet says in Jeremiah chapter 17, the heart is deceitful above all things. It is beyond cure. It's deceitful above all things. It's beyond cure. So back to the golden rule one more time. Do to others what you desire they do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. How do we fix that? You see it now? You see what some people would find as a challenge? I heard one guy literally, this is crazy, I heard one guy literally come up with what he called the platinum rule. The platinum rule, right? Took the golden rule, he figured the golden rule needed improvement, which is wildly narcissistic to even say that out loud, but okay, let's go with it, right? The platinum rule was this: treat others the way they want to be treated. You see how he spins this? Okay, so the golden rule is do to others what you want to be done to you. This one is treat others the way they want to be treated. Which does not solve the problem. I don't know if you notice it, because what if their desires are off, right? And they want weird stuff and messed up stuff and misplaced stuff. Then it's like, this doesn't fix anything, right? It fixes nothing. So, you want an illustration? I'll give you a quick illustration on this. You want a quick illustration on this? I'll give you a quick illustration. Since we're here, we're having fun. Let's do it, okay? Oh, I need a volunteer, everybody's like, please don't call me. Who wants to be my volunteer? Anybody want to be a volunteer for just a moment? No, sir, no. You want to be a volunteer? Okay, come on. Okay. Y'all give Kiara just a quick, there you go. Kiara Elise, welcome to the stage. Great volunteer, stand right there. Okay, so let's say, okay, turn to me. That's even better. Let's say like we were meeting for the first time, right? You didn't know me. You don't know me. I mean, I know your first thought would be like, handsome devil, but let's pretend we've never met, right? Like, this is a typical, like, if we never met, it's like, hey, this is a good, you feel like this is a good spacing. You feel like this? This is a great spacing. Like, this is it's not too, especially it's a guy and a girl thing. But let's pretend I was like, hey, and we met, don't move. Does this feel uncomfortable? Like, yes. A little bit?
Yes.
What about this?
Don't touch me, I don't know you. This is our first time meeting.
What if I was like, hey, what if I was like, here, and I was like, hey, tell me where are you going to school? And sorry, I didn't take any breath mints, so does this feel uncomfortable?
Yes.
Okay. Or let's say we met and I was like, it was here, like I was just, and then my eye contact was away, and like you were like, yeah. Okay, go sit down. Now, if you see the problem with the golden rule, right? Like, or you see the problem that this person was proposing with the golden rule, right? You ever met somebody like that? That their level of physical interaction is not your level? I mean, some of us might have the same name. I don't know. But you ever had somebody like that that's like, little too handsy, little too close? Like, are you with me? But if you're thinking about it, I'm sure in their mind they're thinking like, no, this is the distance I like. Right? This is the distance I like. Right? Do to others what you would have them do to you, and they're like, come on, let's get close. And you're like, stop, you weirdo. Are you with me? Are you with me? All right, go on just a little bit deeper. Here we go. So how do I follow the golden rule? Like, seriously. How do we execute what has become, by many's account, the greatest statement that Jesus ever makes, inside the greatest sermon ever given, by the greatest teacher ever to exist? How do we do it? How do you do this, right? How do we solve this issue? Look at it one more time. Do to others what you desire they do to you. Inside that same sermon that Jesus gives, in chapter 6, he spends a good amount of time instructing on how to pray, okay? Now I want to show you this. How to pray, look at this. This, then, is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Here's the interesting thing. Look at it one more time. Your kingdom come, your desire be done on earth as it is in heaven. This Greek word is only used twice in the Sermon on the Mount. Here, when God says, when you pray, ask that God's desires become your desires. Are you with me? And when he sums up the requirement of the law, which is not attainable, but we are responsible. And he says, treat other people as you desire, not your desires any longer though, because you've been praying for his desires. Are you with me? As you desire to be treated. So ultimately Jesus is saying this, you ready? You cannot love this way, the way God has called you to, until you love this way. This way will always be defined by undercurrents of selfishness, self-fulfillment, messed up, misled, whatever. Always without this first. Love God first. Let God's desires become your desires, and this will get worked out. Does that make sense? Okay. Look at it one more time. Do to others what you desire they do for you. I'm going to give you 3 examples today just to wrap things up because I know it's been heavy. One stream of consciousness. I know. I'm on a roll. Here we go. Ready? So I'm going to give you just 3 examples so you apply this. I want you to leave here applying it. Ready? Forgiveness. Let's take forgiveness just for a moment. Let's say that we didn't have this exactly right, and you were still functioning only this way. And when it came to forgiveness, what you desire, not his desire, but what you desire was forgiveness. Let me put it this way, immunity with no consequences. Okay? Immunity with no consequences. All right? That is not the way he works, but it may be something we want if we've ever done anything that deserves forgiveness or needs forgiveness, right? Because when we've done something transgressive to somebody else, we wish it would just go away. We wish it could just be done with. We wish we'd have immunity with no consequences. No restitution. No amends. It'd be easier if they were just like, I forgot it happened, right? But the problem is sometimes, actually all the time, but in many ways, there's no real forgiveness unless forgiveness and justice coexist. And sometimes justice means there's consequences. There's consequences. It means sometimes structure, organizationally, relationally, physically, changes because of the consequences. Forgiveness and justice always in this desire coexist, right? So you can say, I robbed the bank, I shouldn't have done it, I feel horrible, please forgive me, and want immunity. And God's like, yeah, forgiveness exists for everyone. You're all called into forgiveness, forgiveness of sins, restitution of relationship, but you will still bear the consequences of those actions. That's just life. That's this worked out right. But if you went into it thinking, I want immunity with no consequences, then you'd be judging the other person's behavior by your broken desires, not his desires. Do you see that? All right, let me give you one more. This is tougher, I know. Nobody likes this one, but we're going to do it anyways. Ready? If you said to yourself, and I was having this conversation with my friend over coffee, if you said to yourself, I want casual sex with no connection, I just want casual sex, no connections. Can't we just get there, right? Well, this is God's gift is sex within the confines of a whole life experience, meaning that my body, my mind, and my soul, heart is given to you, right? When that all comes together, beautiful thing. And let's just be honest. When it's separated, it's just a matter of time until it becomes a bad thing. It becomes a messed up thing. We could do testimony day, and that'd be great. Wouldn't it be testimony day on like how messed up never mind. Okay. You know what I'm saying. Last one, kindness. Kindness, okay? You say to yourself, well, kindness, but what if my desire, right? What if my desire is I'm fine with lies or untruths as long as they make me feel good? What if that was your definition of kindness, which is don't ever confront me with truth. Don't ever confront me with reality if I'm uncomfortable with it. And that's what I call kindness. I just want you to be nice all the time. And you said something that was true, but it hurt my feelings. Right? Now, there's a way to bring truth and do it a nice way, and that's what kindness is. But kindness is never divergent. It's never separated from truth. Right? Kindness and truth always overlap. They always coexist. So if your definition of kindness is, I want you to speak to me in non-reality ways to make me feel good about my inflated self-ego, that's this, but not this. Are you with me? And so I say that to you just to say, 90% of the time, when we talk about the golden rule, everybody knows what that means. Until you're at lunch with one guy who's like, my desires are messed up. And I'm like, well, that's a good point. Let's talk about how we solve that. And the only way to solve that is that when your desires become reconciled to his desires, when those two things get connected, right? Inside of that connection, we have the golden rule. Not the silver rule, not the iron rule, the golden rule. Who's with me? Come on. Got one amen and a raised hand. Here we go. Let me pray for you. Father, we thank you for this space. We thank you for this place. We thank you for what a gift it is to come and be in worship and be in fellowship and think more deeply about your guidance, think more deeply about your truth. And so, Father, I pray in these next few moments that as we surrender our heart and our will before you, that you just fill this space, transform our thinking, nudge us towards your way. Take just a moment, think that through, and then we're going to take communion together. Night before Jesus was crucified, he took bread and wine, huddled with his closest friends. Gosh, that had to be an interesting night. Predicting his own death, burial, and resurrection again, of which they missed. He told him, he said, guys, take this bread, take this wine. This is my body broken for you, blood shed for you. Only after the death, burial, and resurrection, only after did these become symbols of redemption through the sacrifice of the Son. This morning, we step into that long lineage of people who've rejoiced in this, celebrated this, embraced this, held this close to their soul as the only way to unburden themselves from the responsibility that we can never attain, that we can only hope to lean into, to be led into, to be empowered by His Spirit. We hold on to these as symbols that it is by His death, burial, and resurrection we are made new and made right. Take it and eat, take it and drink, and give thanks. Would you join me in standing? it all away. Take it all away till all that's left is you. Take it all away. Take it all away. Take it all away till all that's left is you. Sing that. Take it all away. Take it all away till all that's left is you. Let me pray for you. Father, we ask your blessing upon everyone that's here, from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet. May be blessed in your name and blessed by the hearing of your word. May we leave here connecting our desires to your desires. We pray your kingdom come, your desire be done in us and in this space. Father, may we treat others in that way. May we love others deeply. May this fulfill all that you've called us to do. We ask it in your name. Amen. Goodbye. God bless. Love you. Mean it.